Bismillah wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa nasunna bi sunnati ila yawm al-deen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So before I share my story, I would like to share with you guys the story of a very special companion of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Hassan ibn Thabit. You see, Hassan radiallahu anhu, he was not the strongest of the companions, nor was he known for being a warrior. Rather, Hassan was a very faint-hearted individual. He was known to not participate in many of the expeditions and battles of the Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. In fact, during the Battle of the Ahzab, when the Muslims were surrounded by their enemies, and they needed as many men as they could to man the trenches of Medina, Hassan was actually placed along with the women and the children in a certain garrison. And when an enemy of the Muslims tried to infiltrate this garrison, the women and the children, they told Hassan, Hassan, take care of him. He's about to get up in here and he's about to kill people. And Hassan, not because he was a traitor, not because he had ill feeling for the religion, he simply didn't do anything, because he just did not possess the mental and physical capacity to be a fighter. It was just not one of his characteristics. But all because he could not defend the religion physically didn't mean Hassan didn't do anything. Rather, Hassan was of the most avid defenders of early Islam. You see, Hassan, he possesses almost unparalleled linguistic ability and eloquence in the Arabic language that simply made him of the best poets of Mecca. And when he converted to Islam, alhamdulillah, he put that talent fi sabilillah. When the Prophet ﷺ was mocked, his religion was ridiculed, he would call upon Hassan and he would say, Ya Hassanu, ajba Rasulullah ﷺ. Oh Hassan, respond on behalf of Rasulullah ﷺ to their poetry, to their negativity with your poetry. And his ability to inspire the Muslims and to put down their enemies via his poetry was simply amazing. Later, Aisha radiallahu anha, she saw somebody bad-mouthing Hassan, and she told that person, don't insult Hassan, for verily he defended Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. My point is, brothers and sisters, is that Hassan, he had a very extraordinary linguistic skill, and he utilized that skill, and he benefited this ummah tremendously using it. And he didn't let that weakness, that overt fact that he couldn't get on the battlefield, he didn't let that dominate his psychology. And he instead focused on his talents, and he exploited them to benefit this community. So when I heard the story of Hassan ibn Thabit, I thought to myself, what skill set do I have that I can use to benefit the community? After all, I'm only 16 years old, still in high school, can't even drive, don't have a professional degree of any sorts, and I'm not in medical school, as I should be. But alhamdulillah, I thought about it. I came to the realization that, alhamdulillah, one of the ni'mas Allah has bestowed upon me is the ability to read the Quran in the Arabic. You know, I had many friends who just struggled. They really struggled to read the Quran in the Arabic. And so Allah guided me, and I started helping people, and I started teaching the Quran here and there, but nothing major. Then one day, I was in Dallas downtown. And for those of you who don't know, Dallas downtown is the recipient city to many of the world's refugees in general, and most of which come from the Muslim world, many of which come from Southeast Asia, and alhamdulillah, now some are coming from Syria. So I was volunteering at the ISNA food bank, which gives food to these refugees, and it hit me. Why don't I see if I can teach these refugees Quran? So I ask around, and I'm taken to the local sheikh, and I tell him I want to help. And mashallah, tabarakallah, his face just immediately lit up with joy. It turned out he was having a very rough time. He told me how he had been attempting to teach over 120 kids how to read Quran, and how so many of them were lagging behind because there was only one of him. And he told me how as time progressed, more and more kids just kept coming. And he told me that the only thing that was keeping him going, the only thing that was driving him, was the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he said, خَيْرُكُمْ مَنْ تَعَلَّمَ الْقُرْآنَ وَعَلَّمَهُ. The best of you are those who learn the Quran and they teach it to others. So imagine here for a moment, brothers and sisters, just pause. Imagine if your child, your son or your daughter, wasn't able to read the Quran in the Arabic. Imagine the spiritual grief and the impact that would have on the future generations and their Islam. You would take every single measure to ensure that your child obtained a robust ability to read the Quranic Arabic. They became proficient in reading it. You would hire your Maulana Sahib, you would hire your Sheikh, or what have you. But these refugees, they don't have that luxury. They just have to hope. They have to hope that somebody in the refugee community happens to have the ilm, happens to have the time, happens to have the proximity, happens to have the competency to teach these refugees how to read the Quran. And if those factors don't line up, which they don't too most of the time, their child may very well go without a Quranic education. So I helped the Shaykh around a little bit. Alhamdulillah, I lined the load just a little bit though. And I realized that this was not a two-man job. So with Allah Ta'ala, I started the Refugee Education Foundation, a volunteer organization dedicated to ensuring that these Dallas refugees receive a robust Quranic education, such that they can read the Quran proficiently. And alhamdulillah, we've drawn volunteers from across the Muslim community in Dallas, especially from the Muslim youth. And alhamdulillah, we have 5 Hafad and counting who have committed their time to teaching these refugees on a consistent basis how to read Quran. Inshallah, in the coming academic year, we'll be adding a second facet to our project, dedicated to providing academic tutoring for these refugees. Because many of these refugees, due to the turbulence that they face, moving countries, the linguistic challenges that they face, and etc., school becomes such a challenge for them. And inshallah, bid'Allah ta'ala, we'll be providing a guiding hand for them, such that they can succeed academically, and hence propel themselves socioeconomically out of their situation, out of their position. But the point of my spiel is, brothers and sisters, is not to brag about what I have done or what I will do. Rather, Allah has blessed me with the ability to read Quran and to read it proficiently. But some of us may not be competent or qualified to teach Quran to refugees. Some of us may not even live next to refugees. But as they say, to each is his own. To each of us, there is our own circumstance. Perhaps we each have an obvious hindrance, weakness, or obstacle that seems to limit us. But ultimately, Allah Azza wa Jalla has bestowed upon each and every one of us a favor, a talent, or a gift of some kind. Because at the end of the day, brothers and sisters, we are all like Hassan ibn Thabit. We all have a niche in our community to fill that is specific to us and our talents. Some of us may be doctors, and we can open free clinics for this in the city for the urban poor. Some of us may be wealthy businessmen, and we can make sumptuous donations, inshallah, to Yaqeen Institute. And some of us, returning back to the refugee crisis, may just know certain languages like Burmese or Urdu, and we may be able to help these refugees navigate their new linguistic environment. No skill is too insignificant, brothers. It's just a matter of us tapping into them, tapping into that skill, and willing to make it a benefit for our surrounding community. We all know Hassan ibn Thabit, that he chose to use his skill, and he tapped into it, and he aided the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his message. But the question is, what will you do with your skills, brothers and sisters? Wa jazakumullahu khairan wa assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.